Bienvenidos a todos a un nuevo programa y muchas gracias a ti, Mai, por acompañarnos en este espacio para conversar de las cosas que más nos gustan y conocer más de cerca a las mentes maestras que están detrás de las historias que más nos conmueven.
Bien, nuestro invitado de hoy es Craven, nacido en Carlisle, se describe como un hombre feliz al que le encanta reír y como Poe, su detective estrella, tiene un travieso Springer Spaniel llamado Breaking. Es el autor de la serie por Bradshaw, de la cual se han escrito ya 4 libros, y hoy nos centraremos en el primero, que es El show de las marionetas, el cual fue ganador del premio Gold Dagger a la mejor novela del año 2019. También es escritor de la serie Avison Flock, de la cual se han escrito ya 2 libros. Bien, comencemos entonces con la entrevista. Sabemos que por tu página web que has estado en el ejército, estudiaste trabajo social especializado en criminología. Hoy día eres escritor y lo describes como un trabajo que puedes hacer en pijama. Considerando todo este bagaje historial de vida tan variado, ¿cómo has terminado siendo escritor a tiempo completo?
So, Mike, we know that you were in the army and that you have a degree in social work with a major in criminology, as we understand. Yeah. But nowadays you're an author, which according to you is a job you can do in your pajamas. Considering all of this, we would like to know, what was it that finally led you to become a full-time writer?
The British government is the sort of easy answer to say. The probation service, which I worked for at the time, half of it got privatized, and I had a publishing contract when that happened. I thought there would be an opportunity to take redundancy, and I elected to join the part of probation that was privatized, and within about 5 or 6 months the offer of redundancy was on the table, so I took it. It was pretty much as simple as that. I'd been wanting to leave for a while, so it was just a nice opportunity. It all seemed to come together.
Perfecto. Mike, a la hora de escribir, ¿qué es lo primero que desarrollas? ¿La trama o los personajes?
Okay, so when you sit down to write, right? What comes first to you? The plot or the characters?
I think for the puppet show, it was the plot initially, because the plot of the puppet show was originally going to be the third story in the Avison Fluke books, so the plot very much came first. But when I populated with Poe and Tilly, the characters Poe and Tilly, and I sort of got them to a point where I was happy with, the plot changed a lot because the characters sort of changed it. Now I look for plots that I want to write about Tilly and Poe solving. So I'll look at things that would be fun for Tilly and Poe to get up to. So I suppose it's a bit of both at the minute, but it certainly started, it was very much plot driven.
Muy bien. A Yelen, y pregúntale si con respecto al final él lo tiene claro desde el principio o lo va visualizando a medida que escribe.
Okay, we want to know if you do you know the end of the story before you start writing, or you are like figuring it out?
I know the end almost all the time, and I know some of the key scenes I want to get in, but everything else is pretty much up for grabs. And I think that comes from me being a probation officer for 16 years, because I always want to know why somebody did it, why somebody committed whatever crime it is they've committed. So it's quite hard. It would be quite hard for me to write the type of book where I don't know who did it at the end, because the whole book has been that way. Some writers do that; they won't know who did it until the end. I know Ian Rankin, the obviously the very famous author, he quite often doesn't know who's done it until the sort of final 30 pages. But that's not the way I could write.
Yeah, with all the investigation, that it's quite difficult, I assume, right?
Bien, muy interesante. Mike, en una entrevista mencionaste que comienzas a escribir el 1 de diciembre de cada año. ¿Puedes decirnos el porqué de esta fecha y qué rutina u otra manía tienes a la hora de escribir?
We read in an interview that you mentioned that you start writing a book every December the 1st. And could you tell us the reason behind this? And if you have any other routines or habits when you write?
I don't know how it started, actually. I just know that if I start a book on December the 1st, I will have delivered it. I'll have finished it and sent it to my agent within the time on my contract that I'm required to deliver it to. So it's some of it is just a discipline thing. So it doesn't let me sort of drag on till after Christmas, which might make it a bit tighter the next year. Although this year I finished the book, the 6th Poe novel. I finished it last month. So I've actually started a new book. Not a Poe and Tully book, just a standalone. Routine-wise, I don't really have any. I always work in my office. That's where I am now. I always have music on, and I tend not to work weekends because my wife doesn't. So I tend to write Monday to Fridays. I do a lot of events like this at the weekends, which is lovely, but I tend not to write. I do a lot of research, but I don't tend to write.
Bien, ¿y cuál es la fuente de inspiración para obtener esas ideas de tus libros?
And where do you get the inspiration for your books?
Yeah,
If anywhere.
I don't know, to be honest, and I don't mean that in a silly way. I just mean it can come from absolutely anywhere. So I don't tend to think, right, I need to write a book now, so I best come up with a plot. Things will fire off, and I'll give you an example. A few years ago, I was walking to the pub on Christmas Eve on the afternoon, and a neighbour of ours was having an extension done, and it didn't have any windows, so it looked a bit like a stable. And I said to my wife, wouldn't it be funny if when he came down on Christmas morning, there was 3 wise men and a manger with a little baby Jesus in it? And we sort of had a little bit of a laugh about that. And then about 2 years later, I sort of remembered that, and that became the inspiration for the 6th Poe story. So it really can be absolutely anything, the smallest thing or the biggest thing. So the answer is everything and nothing, I suppose.
Ahora metiéndonos de lleno con el show de las marionetas, Mike, ¿cuál fue la escena más difícil de escribir de este primer libro?
Okay, so now let's talk about the puppet show. Which scene was the hardest for you to write? And if you have some fun scene that you like it the most?
Well, I've never been asked that before. It's actually quite a, which is surprising, because I've been answering questions on the puppet show for a few years now. I think the hardest one was probably the towards the end, where he was finding out what happened to his when Poe was finding out what happened to his mother. And that was quite a difficult scene to write, not just because it was quite an emotional scene, but also it had the potential to go on for a long time if I didn't sort of rein it in, and it was a lot longer in the first couple of drafts. I think the funnest scene was when they visit the Bishop of Carlisle, and Tilly. I think that's the first time Tilly's been really funny, when she says no to the licorice tea because it gives her diarrhea.
Bien, específicamente Tilly Bradshaw es una chica con una personalidad y un carácter súper especial. De hecho, a nosotros nos encanta. ¿Cómo desarrollaste este personaje que es hasta cierto punto complejo y además es del género femenino?
So speaking of Tilly Bradshaw, she has a very unique personality, and in addition, she's a female character. So how was it for you to develop her?
I suppose the starting point was my agent asked me to write a new series, because I'd started with the Avison Fluke series, and that had 2 male leads, and he asked me to write another series set in Cumbria because he wanted to sell it to a bigger publisher, and I didn't want to write another series with 2 male leads, so I straight away thought I want a female lead. So that's how I decided to start a female. it wasn't until probably about 3/4 of the way through the first draft that I didn't have a name for Poe. I didn't have a name at all. He was called something entirely different. And someone I know misheard me say Washington Post, the newspaper. And they said, "What's the Washington Post?" So that was, and that straight away I thought, well, that's the name I want to use. But in Cumbria, where I live, you can't call somebody Washington. It would just be silly. So I had to explain why it was called Washington, and that was very dark, as you know. So I had to come back and make Tilly a lot lighter than she was originally, just to balance it out. So the whole books weren't too dark. So that's where Tilly's character came from. Initially, it was from the Everson Fluke series, and then it was because when I worked out the backstory for Poe's first name. So yeah, it's a bunch of happy accidents. I tell people.
Dile que nos encanta la pareja de Poe y Tilly. Somos fan.
She said that we love the Tilly and Poe couple. We love it. We love them a lot, and it's a really good combination of personalities. So we like it a lot.
Gracias.
Muy bien, muy bien. Pregúntale a Yelén, por favor, cómo surgió la idea del título de este primer libro.
Yes, we'd like to know, how did you come up with the title for the book?
It was the name of a bootleg album by a Gothic band called the Sisters of Mercy, so I liked it. It was initially called Welcome to the Puppet Show, but my editor and agent agreed that that was a bit too long, so they cut the welcome to bit. So that was pretty much it, and it seemed to fit. There was a lot of discussion. Initially, it was going to be called something completely different. They wanted something that said Cumbria, something very rural, and said it was Cumbria. But then the sales department actually overruled them. They said, we're looking at an international book, so it needs to have more of an international title. So they stuck with the Puppet Show in the end, and people seem to have liked it. I'm translated into 21 languages now, I think, and not every publisher calls it the Puppet Show. Some actually, I think there is I don't know which country it is. They call it the Burner, and there's other names for it around the world. But the Puppet Show, by and large, is probably about 50% I would say of publishers have stuck with it. So
yeah, sometimes they change the titles in every country. We in Spanish is the same, and we love it. So we wanted to know, how did you decide it? Okay.
El show de las marionetas. I remember I went to Madrid.
Sí, el show de las marionetas.
Yeah, I went to Madrid just before COVID started, actually. So it's been January of 2020, and I did a press tour for my Spanish publisher, and I had to say the title, so they made me practice saying it in Spanish, and I got it really good. But then I forgot how to say my name, because I was switching between the two languages. It was getting quite funny.
Okay. That's funny.
Yeah, it happens to us as well.
Para desarrollar temas tan delicados como el maltrato infantil presente en el show de las marionetas como uno de los ejes, ¿te sirvió toda la experiencia como trabajador social?
Did your experience as a social worker help you develop topics as delicate as child abuse that are present in the puppet show?
It made me aware of some of the low-level child abuse that I dealt with. Obviously, I didn't deal with anything like this when I was in probation, but it helped certainly with how social services would deal with abused children, and how children's homes worked when children were removed from their families. So that was a big help. Yes, I obviously wouldn't use any real cases I was involved in, because that wouldn't have been appropriate at all. So I sort of made up a lot of the reasons why they were taken from their families in the first place, and some were horrific. I think there was one about a witch, which I mean, it's 5 years since I wrote this, so I'm struggling to remember, so forgive me if I'm wrong. Others were much more common, certainly in the UK, particularly In cases of domestic violence, the woman will quite often choose to stay with her abusive partner and have her children removed than get rid of the abusive partner to keep her children, which always surprises me, but also doesn't as well, because of I know what happens because of the work that I used to do. So a lot of my experiences helped with little bits of the book, but the biggest thing that my job taught me was how to write using accessible language, because I had to write court reports, and everybody had to be able to understand those court reports, run from judges down to the people being sentenced for whatever crime they've committed. So I got into the habit of using quite direct, accessible language.
Difícil. Muy bien. En los agradecimientos del show de las marionetas, tú mencionas a la unidad de análisis de delitos graves. ¿Cuán importante es para ti asesorarte con estas fuentes para describir los crímenes reflejados en tus libros?
Okay, so in the acknowledgement in the puppet show, you mentioned the serious crime analysis unit. Do you work close to them to paint a better picture of the investigation behind the crimes that take place in your books?
Yeah, it is a real unit. I've completely made up how the unit works, though. And I haven't been in touch with them. I did send them some copies of the puppet show when it was out, but the actual unit is staffed completely by civilians. There are no police in it at all. It's very much an academic type unit. I saw a documentary on them once where there was a spate of cat killings. So somebody was killing cats and disemboweling them and sort of putting them in horrible displays, and they got called in to sort of advise on what the perpetrator might look like. So they're very much like the FBI's behavioral analysis unit, as it was called then. It's called something different now. But I've completely made up, other than the name and where they're based. It's all from inside my head, and I do apologize to them every now and then for completely misrepresenting what they do.
It's the creative mind.
Absolutely.
You know?
Yeah.
Esta es una pregunta un poco divertida para cambiar el ánimo. Si un día tienes un sueño y uno de tus protagonistas principales te dice tienes que asesinarme en el próximo libro, ¿a quién escoges? ¿A Poe, a Tilly? ¿Y por qué? ¿Y cómo lo asesinas?
So this question is more on the funny side to lighten things up. So let's say you had a dream in which one of your main characters said to you, "You have to kill me in the next novel." Okay. So which one would you choose? Who would you think that character would be, Poe or Tilly? And how would you do it? How would you kill them?
Well, that's another question I've never been asked. I don't think one could survive without the other in the book, so it's unlikely I would kill one of them off properly. However, I'll sort of cheat a bit, because the book I'll be writing next, so the book I'll be starting on December the 1st, starts with Tilly being shot dead by a sniper. So that's my answer. Tilly shot dead by a sniper.
Oh, wow. I want to read that book already. Okay.
Bueno, esperemos que Tilly salga bien librada. Bien. Okay. Sabemos que uno de tus libros ha sido seleccionado para una adaptación de televisión. ¿Podrías decirnos cuál es y qué puedes contarnos de este proyecto?
Okay, so we know that one of your books has been optioned for a TV show. We tried to find which one, but we couldn't find it. So we want to know which book it is, and what can you tell us about this project?
It's the puppet show, and at the minute it's not going ahead. It was going ahead right up until COVID, COVID stopped everything dead, and when they all came back, I think the window had been missed. So it's now back with me. Actually, I own the rights again, which I'm not too disappointed about, actually, because when they bought the rights, the only book they had was the puppet show, because they bought it a year before it was out. So they only had the puppet show. Now they've got, when the next TV company comes along, because they'll have at least 6 books to work. And I think TV series work better when they can merge a couple of stories at the same time. So the Harry Bosch, I don't know if any of you watched the Bosch on Amazon Prime, but that's probably the best cop show on TV at the minute. And each season is about 2 or 3 books of Michael Connelly's. And so hopefully when we come back to negotiate with the TV series, we'll have a lot more books so they can actually choose and do something a bit more interesting.
Bien, ¿cuál sientes que es el error más grande que has cometido como escritor?
So, what do you think it's the biggest mistake you have made as an author?
This is a very easy one. I give Poe a dog, Edgar the Springer Spaniel, because everybody wants to know where Edgar is at any one time. In the puppet show, when I submitted it to my agent, forgive me, I can't remember what page it was, but he rang me up and he said, it's, say, on page 72, it's not clear who's looking after Edgar, so you need to go back and fix that. So I did, and then it got sent to my agent and to my editor, sorry, and she said on page 150, it's not clear who's looking after Edgar, so you need to go and fix that, because readers will notice that nobody is looking after Poe's dog. And it got all the way through to very near the end, when someone who was actually paying more attention than anyone else had noticed that on the time scale that I had set up in the book, Poe had joined the police when he was 11 years old, which was utterly ridiculous, obviously. But nobody had noticed that, but everybody knew where the dog was at any one time. So in every book now, I've got to explain where Edgar is. And in the next one, Black Summer, Verano Negro, I think you call it. Over there.
Yes, this one.
Yes, that's the one, yes. It's a beautiful book, that.
Yep.
I had to invent a neighbour for Poe, just so he could actually put his dog somewhere when he was going away. It was getting very, very silly. And just like Poe and Tilly, I can't kill the dog. That's a big no in crime fiction. You don't kill the dog. You can kill.
No.
You can burn children alive, but you can't kill a dog.
Yeah, readers get very attached to pets. We do so. Please don't kill it.
No.
Como escritor, ¿alguna vez alguien te ha pedido que escribas su historia o que le pongas como personaje dentro de tus libros?
Okay, I think this is quite common, but we like to know your experience. Has everyone ever asked you to write their story or to include them as a character of one of your books?
I get people offer me ideas all the time, and sometimes they're stupid, sometimes they're really good, and I'll make a note of them. So there was somebody said, I think Killian Reid, the Immolation Man, is alive and he's going to come back and help Poe solve something. And I thought, that's actually not a bad idea at all. So I've put that in my little notebook. I'm not very good with just coming up with names, just like that. So I tend to go on to my writing groups and I just say, who wants to be in the next book? So certainly for The Creator, which is out in the UK next year, nearly every character is from my Facebook group. The thing I do get asked a lot is businesses in Carlisle. They'll say, "Can Poe come and visit my coffee shop?" or something like that, because it's good for business and it's a bit of fun as well. And if it fits in the story, I don't mind doing that, because I always try to use real locations where possible. And there's a tour now in London, a London tour tour operator, is bringing people up to Cumbria to go to these real locations that are in the books, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, it is.
We'll have to go visit them.
Bien, esta es otra pregunta divertida. Si tuvieras la oportunidad de conseguirte el genio de la lámpara, ¿cuáles serían tus 3 deseos?
So another light question: if you met the genie in the magic lamp and he offered you 3 wishes, what would you ask for?
Oh. I'd like to meet Stephen King, so that'll be one.
We all do.
I would like Terry Pratchett not to have died, so he could carry on writing the Discworld series, because he was my favorite living author until he sort of stopped living. I don't know, third one. For Newcastle United to win the Premiership one day.
Que dice, ¿qué prefieres escribir? ¿50 libros mediocres o un libro superventas?
Okay, this is another funny question.
Okay.
What do you prefer, to write 50 bad books or regular books, or just one, but it's a bestseller, international bestseller?
Well, I suppose it'd have to be the one international bestseller, but if I had the choice of writing one international bestseller or just writing 50 books that I enjoyed writing and I thought were okay, even if nobody else did, then I would choose 50 books, because I love writing so much, so that I wouldn't want to just write one and then never be able to write again. So I think I've written, let me think, I've written 6 Poe books, 2 flute books, 2 stand. So I've written 10 books in total now, 6 of which are out. At the minute, the rest will be out over the next few years.
I think you're doing. Sorry,
I'd like to carry on until I've written 50 books.
Yeah, you're doing both, I think, because you are a
Well,
bestseller already,
very nice.
and you have been writing a lot, and you will keep writing. So I think you're gonna get both.
Well, thank you.
But that good books, not the bad or regular
Yeah.
books. They are all good books. Okay.
Ya estamos llegando al final de nuestra entrevista, pero queríamos, Mike, que le dejaras un mensaje a todos aquellos lectores que han leído tus 2 primeros libros de la serie, en español, por supuesto, y a aquellos que todavía no se han animado a conocer a Poe y a Tilly. ¿Cuál sería ese mensaje para ellos?
Okay. Well, I mean, in the UK, we're 4 books into the series in the UK, and the readership is going up with every book. So I've obviously hit something that readers like. But the main thing, I'm a reader first and a writer second. So I read about 100 books a year, which will be nothing compared to some people. But for me, it's a lot. So I'm writing books that I would like to read. And I think that's the only thing I can do. And if my Spanish readers want to read a book that the author has enjoyed writing and would enjoy reading, then my books might be the ones for you. They might not, of course. Some people don't like them, but a lot of people do. So that's all I can hope for. And every reader, I'm a big fan of every person who reads my books, even if they don't like them. Because people who read books are better than people who don't read books, and it's as simple as that.
We agree.
Bien, gracias a todos por acompañarnos. Si les gustó la entrevista, no olviden darle like, suscribirse al canal, activar la campanita para no perderse las futuras entrevistas que les traeremos. Y Mike, nuevamente, 1.000.000 de gracias por dedicarnos este tiempo.
So we want to thank you all for joining us. And if you enjoyed the interview, please give us a thumbs up. And don't forget to hit subscribe and activate all notifications so you don't miss any of our future interviews. And Mike, thank you once more for sharing this time with us. We really appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
I've enjoyed it.
We also enjoyed it. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.